So this is the evaluation section. As many, I don't think we had anybody new here today, so I'll be brief. The evaluation section is arguably the most important part because this is where the speakers get their own individual evaluations. With that being said, I'm going to ask the first evaluator to come up to stage, please, and evaluate.
So, Jose, great job. Was this your first speech? Just second. Second, okay. Yeah, so I thought you did a great job getting the speech kind of off the ground. You had a lot of energy. One thing I did notice is you asked a question to the audience. I don't recall specifically what it was. Something like, how are you doing? Or have you ever had this stress in your life? And you immediately moved on to the next thing. So even if it's a rhetorical question, I think it's useful to put a little bit of a pause there. It's like, have you ever had this sort of stress in your life? And then let that question sit. I thought that the really simple engagement of the audience following that went really well, though. And as well as the story. I thought it was super engaging. And the whole time the story, I was like, oh, I can't wait to see kind of what the climax of this story is. And then the story didn't really reach a whole lot of climax. It just sort of spilled into the body of the speech. So I think adding some sort of ending to the story or thinking through the segue into the body of the speech a little bit more would serve you well. Generally, I thought the speech as a whole had a really clear structure. It made a lot of sense, and you were very clear up front. So I'm going to list these 3 types of stress, and I'm going to talk about ways to deal with that stress. And it was all really clear. The only other thing I'd suggest is coming up with a little bit more of a secure ending, maybe a call to action of some sort or an overarching suggestion. As much as I did enjoy ending on eat ice cream, that's always a good way to end the speech. But yeah, I think just sort of tidying up those details and working on the pacing between things like questions and audience interaction would really polish it up a lot.
Another good evaluation by Kirk, thank you. Now, would I please get the second evaluator to come up if she's ready? She needs a few more seconds.
Great. First of all, Zach, I really appreciated how you took the speech and made something really meaningful for us as people that go Toastmasters on a weekly basis. So you're talking about how Toastmasters was more of a marketing organization that is teaching us how to market ourselves. And being in a club can sometimes be a little intimidating. Sometimes you lose your purpose in it. Sometimes you just go every week and it just becomes a habit and you're not really sure why you're there. And so you giving the speech was really good because you showed us why exactly we're here. We're here to market ourselves and learn how to do so and to learn specific skills so that we can market ourselves to potential you said in your words like spouses or potential teachers and things like that. So in addition to tying your speech to the purpose, which made it a really meaningful speech, one thing I also liked was how you prepped beforehand and you wrote down the title of the speech and you also wrote down the scale. So that just shows one of the good examples of what a good speaker would do is he would come to the meeting beforehand and then prep for what he needed to do. And so, for example, I came here 15 minutes early and Zach had already written all of this down and he wasn't scrambling to hurry up and find a pen, dry erase marker and then just write off the scale. And so he already had that all set and ready, and so he was able to come up to the stage calmly and then just immediately start demonstrating what he needed to do. I would say that one thing that I would improve on was, if you were to do the speech again, would be the organization of the 2 stories that you were telling. Because at some points I couldn't tell if you were going back to the main speech or if you were telling the next story, if that makes sense. Because you're telling 2 different stories within a speech, and we need to really understand when those stories are happening. So for example, you were telling the story of, from your phone, and then you were also, the second story was a story of the boy on the train. And then when you were telling the story of the boy on the train, I thought you had moved on didn't realize that that was the second story that you're trying to illustrate. So I think two things that you could do there is impersonate better, or you could have the perspective of someone else telling a story. So for example, you could say like, oh, there's this time I heard a really good story, and then say what that story was, and then there's this time I heard this really bad story, and then say what that story was, instead of doing the stories yourself. Although I have to say that those two examples that you gave were really good examples. And then as for the criteria in the speech, it said to basically just say what you were, to basically act how you were, do what you were trying to say. So for example, you said you wanted to talk about volume in your speech, and you had really good volume, and you had great interaction with the audience in multiple different venues. And one thing I would say is to increase the enthusiasm you had in that speech, because this was a very uplifting and positive speech, and you wanted to be able to inspire the audience to market themselves. And then, but yeah, overall you had a great conclusion and a great meaningful speech.
That was a great evaluation, and that completes the evaluation section. Can I get the reports? So the timer, has everybody been in time?
Yes, everyone's been in time.
And the grammarian, do we have a grammarian today?
Grammarian.
Yeah, let's get the grammarian report, please.
First up, Jose Reyes. So really, I thought it did pretty well overall. I think it's really the typical stuff, just wash your run-ons and complete sentences. So as probably going to come up in the odd counter. Like, watch your filler words. And then, so the ones I kind of caught myself, just were like very and so. Those are perfect ones that you could just switch up the words, look up some good, extremely, or some other great words for that. And really, that's the only thing that really caught my eye. So, yeah. Then, for our next speaker, Zach. Same thing. I think it was overall pretty great. You might have been doing this for emphasis, so like I like the repetitiveness that you had at the point of your speech, but I didn't like the word that you also used the word vary. So you said like vary this, vary that. So I think the repetitiveness of your phrasing was great for your speech, but just switch up the variety or a different word in general. And I think another instance you just said like definitely and then definitely, so the same thing. And then just kind of work on the transitions, make sure it's clear, and the variety of the transition words. Yeah.
Thank you. And lastly but not leastly, the off-counter report, please.
Jose, you had 13 ahs in your speech. However, 8 of those were in the last couple minutes. You hit a period where you just had like 5 in a very short amount of time. I could tell it was when the timer put the green up and you got nervous. And it was visible. Just notice that. I think you can improve that for sure. Zach, you had 6. Good job. But you have some words you rely on. You know is one of them. Yeah. It's like a mindless pause. You don't need it because you're better than that. I know you are. Tyler had 3, sir. Little ones.
Oh.
But Trisha, you had 2 in your table topics speech, and I've noticed 1 outside of that as Toastmaster. Slate, you had 5 in your table topic speech, and 7 just. Kirk had 6 in your table topic speech, and 10 on your evaluation. Watch that. Sarena, similarly, you had 3 in your table topics, and 11 in your evaluation. Ben had 4 in your table topics. Tyler Burnette had 4 in your table topics. That's it.
Thank you. All right, so we have plenty of time, so I'm going to try to go as in-depth as I possibly can on the evaluators. In a positive way, constructive way. All right, first, Kirk, how many times have you evaluated?
Today.
Just 1?
Just the one.
It's very good. You did it without notes. It's very, very good. One thing I did notice, and I noticed this for a few people, is that, like Jose, I think you did this as well. you stand back here, and I think trying to put myself in your shoes, subconsciously I feel like the back of the stage is kind of safe because it's away from the audience. You can see everybody all at once, so to speak. And so I think a lot of people like to come back here because it feels safe. Also, you were shifting your weight to your back hip back here, and going, just because I'm speaking about the nonverbal cues, I had read a body language for dummies book last semester, and it talked about how shifting weight shows what you're kind of thinking. And usually when shifting weight to one side or the other means your body's wanting to go that way subconsciously, if that makes sense. So you may be projecting that to people, that you may be uneasy, so to speak, I think is the best way to put what I'm trying to say. Other than that, you're very, very confident. You were able to clearly put forth your ideas and your message towards Jose, and you did it in a very coherent way. So good job. Everybody give him a round of applause. Okay. Sarena, notes. I think, how many evaluations have you done so far now?
I don't know, 5, 4?
5? Okay. I think next time you should try coming up here without notes. And when you do the evaluation, give her, or sorry, him.
Wow.
It's been a long day. I'm sorry. It has been a very long day for me. Try giving him or her the most you can give them without using your notes, and then you can, because we don't have the books anymore, which I kind of don't like about the pathways, you can actually give them your notes. So like, if you're evaluating, this is for anybody, if you're evaluating, write them some notes, and then give it to them afterwards so they can review it and go home and look at the YouTube and say, oh, okay, yeah. I understand. And with you weren't quite as far back as Kirk was, but you were a little bit farther back than I'd like to see. I like to see people like where he was, right center stage, because that way it just feels more symmetrical. Because if you're over here all the time, it feels asymmetric. Whereas if you're smack dab center, there's the end, there's the end, and here's the aisle. It looks, presentation-wise, it looks better. Also, you were rocking back and forth a little bit, like you were stepping forward, and then kind of like nervous energy. And so maybe just focus on just planting, and then moving with purpose, like one point to the next. Other than that, very professional. I think you look nice today. And that's about it for the evaluation. Now for the general meeting section, Trisha, Toastmaster today. This is your first time, right? Did a very good job, very professional. I could not catch any grammatical or filler words or anything, and that is very good. I think you're very much a natural speaker, and so I would love to see more, like, longer speeches and your progression. You look nice. I really don't have anything that I could catch this time for you to work on, which is a good thing. And so that was good. Let's see, table topics. I love the topics. They made me want to come up and do the topics. Sometimes people, they have some topics, not all the topics, but some of the topics are like, I'm not too interested coming up, and it just doesn't really get me going, get me vibing with the table topic section. But every single one of those, I was like, oh, those are cool. Yeah. But again, that's another thing I wanted to add with you, Kirk, is the professionalism. I would like to see people wearing at least a collared shirt if they have a role. And I understand sometimes you wake up late and it's not like this is an actual business setting and we're not here to make money. But just a little mental note in the back. Let's see, anything else? Don't wear a hat. I had a bad hair day today, so. But I think that's about it. So I'm going to call the Toastmaster back up to the stage, and we're going to get this meeting on the way.
Thank you for the evaluations, Tyler. I want to thank everyone for coming out. I know there's a lot of exams and anything else going on for this week. Everything's piling up. But I do appreciate you being here. And with that, I will give the stage back to Tyler, our president.